Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting edge conversation while exploring the quantum possibilities. And we are really going to do it again tonight with a really interesting guest that I just know you're going to enjoy or likely have enjoyed, but will enjoy in a new way, because this will be a new conversation for a new day. Before we get started, I just want to thank you for being here. Did you know we have a membership group? The membership group is loaded, chock full of information that Augie is putting in, videos and exclusive content that's only there for the members. You might want to check that out. We also have a mastermind group that meets on Sunday. We get together some amazing people, and it's always so much fun. Amazing people with the sweetest souls and the most brilliant beingness, expansiveness get together, and we set intentions for the benevolent. Pixie is in that group too, for the benevolent things that we want to see happen in the world. Sometimes it gets personal. We do healings for each other, for pets. It's Sunday at 2 p.m. If you would like to join us, send an email to the mastermindconnection@gmail.com. You can come test drive it. If you like it, you can come hang out with us every Sunday. Thank you for supporting us, whether it is through the super chat function or whether you send us a PayPal at Broadcast Team Alpha. We are always so grateful that you're here. We're grateful for your energy. We're grateful for the lively conversation. We see the chat room taking shape already, and just so happy that you're always here with us. So Augie, please tell us about our guest, Jason.
Yes, this is going to be fun. We have a very well-known gentleman with us. His name is Jason Quitt. And for most of you out there, I probably don't even need to introduce him, but I'm going to do it anyway. And for those of you that like to surf the internet while you listen, I'm going to give you his website right up front here. And I guess one of them is thecrystalsun.com. thecrystalsun.com. And he's one of the leading thought leaders out there with information in so many different areas that you can pretty much ask him anything and he can talk on it. Those people are not that many of, because when we study, he remembers and we learn. And he's also a frequent guest on radio, podcast, TV, and a speaker on conferences anywhere and everywhere out there. I see his name on the conferences. He's also written 2 books, but he's got his name on several others. And that is, some of them are also in foreign languages. And for the next hour, he's here with us for us to listen and learn. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. And forgive me, I turned my camera off because it's saying that my connection is unstable, so I'm hoping to save bandwidth. So forgive me, but I'm still so here and present and involved. And I know we were talking a little bit before the show that you had a different life before you got to this expression. And how did this rise up for you? What was the turns and twists in the path that made this that you do now rise up to meet you?
Well, I would say that I had a normal upbringing, a normal life, but it was still a little weird. I would say that I was a gifted or psychic child. I had many different experiences with the paranormal, past life, out-of-body experiences, ghosts, the normal childhood, I guess. But
for some of us, yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't until my early 20s when I got out of college and I started to work with a friend of mine. We opened a recording studio. I was doing graphic design work, and we were having the time of our lives. We were starting our lives and did what we loved. Mm-hmm. And I started to have these episodes. started to happen in my life. And these episodes were of sleep paralysis. And I know lots of people have experienced sleep paralysis. It's more common than people think. Basically, you go to sleep and you wake up in the middle of the night, and your body is still completely asleep and frozen, but you're awake and aware. Your mind is awake and aware. So basically, you're screaming in your mind or screaming in your body to wake up or move your arm or get up. It's quite disturbing. And as this was occurring, it became more and more frequent, and I started to become more aware of things in my room at night. So I would feel presences walk in the room while I'd be frozen. And obviously, you go into terror, fear. What can this be? Aliens, demons, we all watch the movies. So, this is, where the mind goes. And it was through sleep paralysis that I had my first out-of-body experience, where I tried to wake myself up from the paralysis, and I shook so hard in my own body that I popped out. And it's exactly what people described in a near-death experience. I found myself outside of my body, looking down. You float up to the ceiling, and I'm looking at my body in the bed. And to my surprise, is I saw a being standing at the foot of my bed that was very tall. It looked like a giant shadow with form. And I thought that this was it. I died. That was the Grim Reaper. I'm going to the afterlife. And I was so scared that I thought I was dead that I got sucked right back into my body and woke up.
Wow.
And that was my gateway experience. That was my opening up to the spirit world again in my early 20s. And that was the portal in which I used to start to learn how to leave my body. And this was back in 2002. So over 20 years ago. And ever since then, my entire path has changed. I stopped working. Back then, I quit the studio. I needed to learn what was going on with me. Suddenly, I had motivation to heal. In the out-of-body experiences, I was drawn to different modalities of consciousness and healing. So I went back to school. I went to an energy medicine school, tried to learn what was happening. I did that for 2 years or 3 years. And then after I graduated, I went and connected with an Algonquin shaman who was teaching classes up here in Canada. And I started to train under him. And my whole life just changed in seeking any information I could on what was happening to me, and two, what is consciousness? What is life? What is the mysteries surrounding everything? So
did you get that answer? Did you get that answer about what life is? No.
Of course not. Of course not. It's constantly evolving. And this is what I love about the consciousness community or the awakening process is I can go all night with you and talk about all these crazy experiences and stories of beings and out of body, time travel, dimensions, the crazy, crazy fun stories. But it's like, if I have a flat tire on the road, who's going to fix it, right? I still have to pay taxes. They don't give you a special reward and say, here you go. The interesting part of all of this is what I found about the path is that originally you're so open and you're exploring these new worlds and ideas and concepts. And the more that you explore them, the more you put an importance on the physical world. And how precious life is, how precious your body is, and how to care for the world you live in, how to care for the physicality. And it gives you a completely new perspective of life itself. So at first it can be like escapism. Yes. You know, we want to travel the ethers, and then it evolves to, you know, what is the physical world? Why are we here? What is this mission? And why is it so important?
Yes. Yes. I love that. And it's always so interesting to me how we go out, you know, really expansively, and then kind of come back in and, you know, suddenly realize, like you said, how important it is to take care of the body and to develop, you know, the mastery in the body and the health to facilitate, right, when we journey through that expansion or continue on the journey would probably be a better way to say that, you know?
Yep. And this was literally the main messages I first started to receive back in the early 2000s. It was, before you do anything in this world, before you take any step out of the body, you have to heal yourself. You have to, you know, learn about your energy, because what you find in the astral world, or what you find in the awakening process, is that you're stepping into a world that's filled with what you carry. You know, you're stepping into your mental energy fields, your emotional energy fields, the attachments, the entities that connect to you because of what we carry, our wounds, our past. So that this is why it could also be quite frightening for somebody to, you know, take a step into that other world, because what hits you first, you know, it could be seen as negative, but it's really the things that you carry first.
Yes. Yes. Like doing the shadow work.
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned the astral world, and that's kind of close to my heart too. Because you mentioned also in some of your writing that when you get out there, in the beginning, it's maybe hard to communicate with the entities that you find there, because they may not speak English. English is not the universal language, but what have you found? What have you found that makes it easier to communicate with someone that doesn't have a physical body and a voice box?
And that's the interesting thing, is because when you leave your body, you don't have a body. It's not a physical body. So how can you communicate if you don't have a mouth, if you're not breathing? And it's through thought forms. It's through feelings. Yeah. So we talk about telepathy. And it's very interesting, because when the beings were communicating with me, it was in my own voice.
Wow.
So it's a telepath, like they could be standing in the room with you, and when they speak, it's your voice speaking, and it sounds like it's coming from inside the room they're in, like it's projected, but really it's inside your own head.
Yes. Wow.
It's your own voice in your own head, and that's how they communicate. And that's how I communicate back to them, is using this. And at first, and it was kind of humorous, but it was also frustrating. At first, there were some type of beings that did come that started to speak to me, and it wasn't in English. And I would just sit there, listen, which is not listening, it's telepathic. And then after I was very polite, and I said, "I'm sorry, but I don't understand anything you just said to me. Do you speak English?" And they just kind of give you a look, and they go away. This feeling that I would get was they thought I knew what they were saying. It's like they were very comfortable communicating, but maybe Jason's normal consciousness bled through into that world. Yeah. Whereas if it was just my astral or spiritual self they were communicating with, the spiritual self would understand, but not Jason.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I don't understand. I don't understand, but I would say that maybe on some level, the communication was understood, but just not to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And some of the higher spiritual entities, they are good at mental pictures, and they can give you a concept, and in your higher mind, you're able to break down the concept and make sense out of it.
Yes. And it's kind of like the Matrix, because, people will say like, oh, you're dreaming. I go, yeah, of course I'm dreaming. It's, if they're communicating with you and they can't speak, they can put you in this kind of dream state where you can go through the dream to understand what they're trying to express to you. So I always tell people, they're like, well, what are levels of contact experience? I say, well, the first level of contact experience is your dreams. They can communicate through the dream world and take you on a journey or transfer information through dreams.
Yes. And then as that communication has advanced for you, what different shapes has it taken? Have you actually had a face-to-face, or?
In the astral, you could have a face-to-face with a being.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a face-to-face with a being in the physical world. All right. So I've never had like an alien contact or some being just, manifest in the room while I'm awake.
Yeah.
That has never happened yet.
Yet. That's a good word.
Yet. It probably
it happened.
Well, yes, I've heard of many stories where it does happen.
Yeah.
But to me, it has not. But these journeys are, I would say, they venture on the spiritual side of things. So many people look at it as like an alien type of contact. I don't see it in that way. I see it as this kind of multi-dimensional space in which we inhabit along with other types of life forms. And sometimes these life forms don't have a physical body. So the way that they can communicate with us is through this medium of the astral world or this other dimension where we can have this contact experience. And it could be very spiritual. Let's say like, friends and family that have passed, sometimes they can come and visit you in that state. But then again, you have spiritual beings that are not very forthcoming, and they'll choose the form of your loved ones, pretend they're your loved ones and come to visit you.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you discern? Do you have like a little litmus test that you do to sort out who's real and who isn't?
I would say that it's kind of like I don't even know how to describe it. It's a knowing. It's not like a discerning. It's like I don't question them who they are. It's like, for example, I was meditating once and left my body, and then it was like my mother was standing there, but my mother's still alive, right? And she starts talking to me, and I'm listening, and it's what she's saying just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't feel right. And I just said, okay, cut the act, show me who you are. Like, why are you doing this?
Yes.
So sometimes it takes time to kind of gauge it. And then you realize that, there's something not entirely feels right about this.
Yep.
So then you can kind of change the whole dynamic. And what I find very interesting is that when you catch them, they can't hold their form. It's like, no, you're not who you say you are. Stop it. And then suddenly it's like the illusion goes away and you see kind of the being behind the mask. And you have a lot. This is another thing that I find very interesting is you have a lot more power than they do. So, we think that we're coming into this world, these things can affect us and harm us in different ways. But the moment we put our foot down, the moment we assert our power in that world, it's like there's no competition. If I say like leave, they leave immediately. It's like you're catching something.
Interesting. Interesting.
There are pranksters out there, and when you tell them, point and tell them to leave, they do.
Yeah. And they're afraid of you. And not a lot of people talk about this, but it's, a couple back in the early days when I wasn't as smart in these worlds, I used, if they were bothering me, sometimes I would like grab them and hold on to them and like try to get information, like interrogate them. And they would freak out. It's like if I was, trying to hold on to them, they would try so desperately to get away from me. It's like, okay, I caught you. You can't play anymore. Why are you doing this?
Yes.
And that took a lot of time. Now I don't bother to do that anymore. And sometimes I feel like, sometimes it's good not to play with these things because you don't really know what could happen.
Yes.
And, sometimes I tell stories and this is what I did. And the shaman or person will look at me and say, Jason, don't do that. You don't want to find out. You don't want to find that out. Just don't. You went too far and you're lucky. Just keep it good.
Yeah, some things are better left alone. I really get that. And I'm so curious, Jason, about your book, The Egyptian Postures of Power. Can we talk a little bit about that? It looks so intriguing to me. And when we were talking, you mentioned that this was the book that came forth rather than what you really initially had in mind. Is that right?
Well, both of these books, The Egyptian Postures and Astral Genesis, are basically the same kind of trajectory of consciousness. And it started out with my out-of-body experiences. And in the beginning, the messages that came through was you have to heal yourself. And one of the ways that I was guided to heal myself was through a practice called Qigong.
Yes.
So I started to learn Qigong and breathing and meditation and started to move and generate and cultivate energy until I can feel it, until I started to have spiritual experiences through the meditations. And one night, I was taken out of my body. I was on an out-of-body experience. I was taken to a temple in Egypt. And back then I really wasn't even into Egypt. We all have Egyptian books at home from the museum and stuff, but, I wasn't really into it. And I was taken back to an Egyptian temple and I was in a room with this person who looked just like the Egyptian statues. And they were standing in a posture and looking at me. And I just instinctively knew I had to stand in front of them and copy the postures they were doing and look at them. And as I copied their postures, it felt like something opened up over my head and this waterfall of, it felt like solar energy. It was like heat, a waterfall of heat went through every cell of my body and it was profoundly powerful. That's something I've never felt or experienced before in my life. And I woke up from this experience in my bed, holding the exact same posture from the experience, and the energy was still going through me.
Wow.
In the physical world. And the moment that I broke the posture, the energy just shut off. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. I've never experienced anything like this before. And I start, you open up the Egyptian books that you have as a coffee table book, and it's like, wow, like they're standing in these postures. And it just dawned on me that, oh my God, I'm learning Qigong. These Egyptian postures are these Egyptian statues are standing in postures. This has to be some type of very ancient energetic system that's trying to be expressed through the objects and artifacts of Egypt. And so on these types of out of body experiences, I would learn various postures, and I'd come back to this world and, write them and practice them. And I would go to my cousin, who's a Qigong teacher, and she was also a channeler. And we would go over these postures together, and she would channel more information. We'd work on it. And I moved from my Qigong, which was a Chinese style Qigong, and I slowly moved into just doing the postures that I was being taught. And those postures changed my life. It just instantly connected me back to Egypt, to past lives, I started to download information. I was just so impressed. Like, I started to feel energy, have all these experiences. So I wrote a really simple book back then, and it was about, might have been like 30 pages. The book, the first Egyptian postures book, I think was about 30 pages. And it was just pictures of me standing in the postures, just like the statues. And I would just put a paragraph underneath it saying, this is how the energy moves when you stand in this posture. That's how simple the first Egyptian postures of power book was. 30 pages of pictures of me standing in these postures.
Wow.
And I started to go around. I was invited to different groups, and I started to teach them, and people really took to these postures, and they asked if they can purchase the books. So first I just went and, printed pictures and, paper clipped them together, and that was the book. And that remained the book for a couple of years until COVID happened. And everything in the world basically stopped, and I could actually sit down and write the book. I got it right here. The Egyptian Postures of Power book, which is an actual book. It's not 30 pages of pictures of me. And it goes through the postures. It goes through the whole mysticism of Egypt and meditations and how this whole system works. So that is kind of like, for me, that was the solidest information that I received from spirit, received from leaving my body, and that I could actually take from those experiences and actually create a book or create a system that I can share with people and say, if we meditate in these postures, this is what will happen with your energy in this regard.
So then, if other people are doing these postures, and obviously there is a connection there that has, esoteric effects, what kind of feedback do you get from people? What kind of results or experience are they getting when they stand in these postures and, which they hold their arms and so on?
I can share. And there's numerous experiences, and usually I don't share. I don't want to tell anybody anything, and just find out by yourself, because everybody's different. But I've heard so many stories of spontaneous healings of things, and that, like I said, I can't make any claims, obviously. But I could tell you firsthand experiences. I remember there's one story. I was at this health show. It was a trade show in Toronto. And a young lady walked up to me, and she wanted to thank me. And she said her sister bought her the book, and she started practicing it. and the hearing came back in her right ear. And I said, "Oh, that's great." She goes, "No, you don't understand. I haven't had hearing in my ear since birth."
Wow.
And just like doing the postures, her hearing came back. So, and that's it stunned me, but you get these type of responses from people. And this is why I don't really want to tell people what it could do. There's some people that I had another level to this, which was called Salute to the Moon. I'm laughing because sometimes, they weren't expecting what would happen, and they started leaving their body.
Wow.
And having these experiences. Wow. And they were, at first they were upset with me because they weren't expecting that to happen. They had to stop doing the Qigong because they started to leave their body.
Wow.
But then later they got back into it and said, okay, things have calmed down. So there's so many different types of experiences, and it has nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. It has to do with you and the way your energy is set up. So all the postures are doing, and it's such a simplistic concept, is that we have an energetic field. We have energies moving through us, through our meridians, our channels, our chakras, our energy fields, and that our experience in life, or the patterns of our life, or karma, whatever you want to call it, distorts our energy field and changes the way energy moves through us. It's a very simple concept. And by going into meditations of postures, what you're doing is you're changing the way that energy moves through the body. So think of it like, remember the bunny ears on the old television station, the old TVs? You take the antennas and you tune them and you hit the right channel, and the energy comes through, and now you can have a visual experience on the TV because you're tuned into that channel, right? Well, the physical body is like the same thing. You put your feet on the earth, which is a negative polarity. It's a negative ionization. It pulls you down. Your arms are in the air, positive ionization. As you move your body into different postures, it's like a tuning fork. So you change your posture, you change the way the energy moves and collects into the body. So by practicing Qigong or practicing these type of movements, what you're doing is you're repatterning the energy moving through your body. You're taking control and moving the energy in the energy field. And if you have a distortion, if you have some blocks, if you have something that is causing certain things in your physical life, spiritual, emotional, mental, whatever it is, that the concept is, if you change that pattern, if you change that distortion in the energy field, that will have a cascade effect down into your physical life. And I can just tell my own personal experiences, because I was practicing this religiously, is that growing up, I had the worst stomach ever. I had IBS. I couldn't eat anything. Like, it was bad. So I was very malnourished, had just bad time, right? I was just bad. And I also had learning disabilities. I stuttered constantly. I was very shy to talk. I had problems writing. Like, I couldn't spell anything. Like, I was having the English language, or any language, was a real challenge to me. So that was me. That was Jason growing up and into his early 20s, had a lot of difficulties and challenges. And then after doing Qigong for so many years, I noticed that I stopped stuttering. I noticed that, my stomach just healed itself. I noticed I can get up and talk in front of people like I never did before. And I started to read, like, every book on my shelf I've read. Wow. In high school, I would just get the movie, because I couldn't really get through the book because of my disabilities. But so the only thing I can think of is either growing up just naturally heals you, or was it me taking this energetic path that changed the patterning of my own brain.
Yes. I tend to believe it was B. This is amazing. And what a gift. I mean, what a gift you received. And I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to get a vision of how that would go. So people would kind of get into the flow state by doing Qigong with you and then move into the postures. Is that how it goes?
Well, anybody can do the postures. And in fact, I tell a lot of people there's very ancient statues, even Buddhist statues of them meditating with, certain mudras or body postures. And I just say, copy the statue.
Yeah.
The statue is trying to show you something. It has information. And,
Understood.
if I say this is what the statue means, I'm doing a disservice.
Yes.
Because every single person will get something different because we're all different beings, different energy structures. So you can look at the postures, you can follow the postures and do the meditations yourself and see what happens. Right. And even today, sometimes, I follow a lot of accounts online that post ancient artifacts, and I'll see ancient statues meditating or standing in a very strange posture. And I'll say to myself, okay, I've never seen this one before. Let me try it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Do you have classes? Do you hold classes? Are they in real life or online or?
I used to. Okay. Like I said, when I first started coming out to this type of information, I was doing these small classes in Ontario, just to a handful of people, 10, 20 people, maybe. It just kind of grew. And now when I do conferences, sometimes I'll do a lecture on the Egyptian postures. And then at the end of the lecture, I'll teach some of the Egyptian postures so that everybody gets up in the class and starts doing it. But I left in the book, I have, I made statues with a friend of mine who's a 3D artist. So for example, you have pages where they show you the posture and then, so it's very, very simplistic. These aren't hard to do. And you can just try.
That's very interesting to me. I just think the body is such an integral part of our spirituality, and it seems like you've found you've come upon postures that actually amplify that. I mean, that actually take you into a journey, right? If you are in the alignment and ready to go, that's amazing.
The body has its own language, its own consciousness. And we speak English, we communicate this way, but our body communicates through feeling. So after doing Qigong for so many years, your body sensitizes itself to energy. So it's not just a concept, you can actually feel the energy moving through you. You can feel the energy in the environment. And you can actually feel the points. We all see the acupuncture dolls or know of acupuncture and other modalities that have the points on the body. In my classes and what I teach is learn how to touch your own body. Just go over your body and feel the different parts of your body, because there are points on your body that when you go over them with your fingers, you'll feel the pain. You'll feel that they're sore. And so these are points that need to be worked on, or there may be a block, or there's some other reason why there's a pain. So the body is speaking to us through feelings. So if someone has pain, it's not, we don't say, okay, let's turn off the pain. We say the body is communicating something to you. When you get the right message, that pain is going to go immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, they had a lot of technology and a lot of tools back in Egypt several thousand years ago. And there's one thing that I've been wondering about, and I think you touched on it in some of your writings, the Ankh.
Yes.
What was the Ankh for?
Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a couple different answers because I've gone through a journey of the Ankh. So, in many years I believe this, and many years I believe that. They say it's the symbol of life, and you could look at it as a symbol. It looks like a person standing with their arms out, and the hoop around the head, and you could say, okay, that's similar of the human body. Recently, I've kind of changed my tune, and I believe that the Ankh is a symbol of the sun. And it's the symbol of the earth and the sun and the horizon, and that it's basically the symbol of the cycles of life on earth that brings life to all of creation. So the Ankh itself, the design of it, if you measure the Ankh from the base to the arms, it comes out in a 23.5 degree line on each side of the Ankh, hitting the arms. And this is the tilt of the earth. So the sun goes from the equinoxes, which is the exact center of the earth. So the sun goes center on the earth. And then over the year, it tilts to 23.5 degrees to the Tropic of Cancer, and then back to the equator, and then 23.5 degrees to the Tropic of Capricorn. And this is what gives us the seasons of life on Earth. So I find it incredible that the Ankh itself is designed with these dimensions that follow the nature and the path of the sun itself. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's solar symbolism. It is the key of all life on Earth, which gives you the seasons. And it activates all life. So the sun, it charges the air with electrons. It gives the earth, it helps the magnetism of the earth, and it basically feeds all life in nature. So in that regard, it's a symbol of the sun. And if you kind of go back to other philosophies of it, they believed that it goes back to ancient tribal shamanism, and that it's actually a vertebrae of the bull. And if you look at a vertebrae of the bull, it looks exactly like the Ankh.
Wow.
And what they believed, it was the sacral vertebrae of the bull. And they believed that the bull was the symbol of life, gave fertility. It allowed for the crops. They used the bull, the cows, to survive. So they believe that the essence of the bull, the sacral chakra of the bull, came from that vertebrae. And so there's many dimensions of what the Ankh could be as a symbol. And it just depends on where our consciousness is and what we can see within it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. I have never heard that. That's fascinating, Jason.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and just to go back to the Ankh, like, my new theory with the Ankh is that you can actually hold it out to your eye, and if you place it on the horizon, so the Ankh line, if you place the Ankh line on the horizon, and you have the hoop right in the center facing east, when the sun rises, it'll either be north of the hoop, in the center of the hoop, east, or north of the hoop, because the sun rises in different parts of the horizon depending on the time of the year.
Wow.
So they can actually put their arm out, look at the horizon to the rising sun, and know what time of year it is, know when the solstices are, and know when the equinox is.
Wow. I like that theory. Amazing.
Yeah, that brings up another question. There's many calendars around. We have the astrological calendar, but that was before the Julian calendar, the Gregorian calendar, the Chinese calendar, the Hebrew calendar. They came first. Who do you think, or how do you think the astrological calendar came about thousands of years ago?
It took thousands of years because human beings had to study the heavens first. And what they noticed is that first, if you look at the heavens, you'll have the stars that don't change or don't move. So they're fixed stars, which are the constellations. And then you have the stars that are fallen from heaven. So you have the fallen angels, which are the planets, because the planets are stars that are bright objects in the sky that move without the constellations moving. And then you have the sun, and then you have the moon. So if you look at the Mayan calendar, for example, or any ancient calendar, there were many calendars, especially in Egypt. The Sothis calendar had to do with the rising of Sirius. And that changed. I think the Sothis calendar it takes about 1,500 years for it to go through its cycle to return back to its original point. So that's a long time to study the star Sirius. And there's sites all around the world that you can see they mapped Sirius, and they changed their doorways or their obelisks or whatever it was to capture where Sirius was, and it changed over 1,000+ years. The Mayans, they calculated all the different planets. So it was, each planet had its own calendar. Venus was a very important planet that they calculated. And we have these very long count calendars. And the longest one would be 25,960 years or 50 years, which is the precession of the zodiac going through all the signs. So in my opinion, that means, one, humans had to literally travel the earth, observing the sky at different latitudes of the earth. So they had to move around the earth, explore the sky, map the sky. And the craziest thing about this is that it takes 72 years for the fixed stars in the sky to move 1 degree. Wow. 72 years for 1 degree. So they had to study the sky for 26,000 years to see the entire sky change.
Wow.
So that's how long they would have to observe the cosmos to create these long calendars. And that is not written in our history, but we have evidence of these calendars at Göbekli Tepe 12,000 years ago, fully formed. We have these in Egypt. The Sumerians studied the sky, the Mayans. All these cultures had this type of knowledge of the stars. So there is a very ancient history that is not taught. And that's where I get into this book, Astral Genesis, Astrological Keys of the Gods. That's where my journey started in that book. Was there this ancient civilization, ancient heritage of the human race that studied the stars, that gave this knowledge of the stars to civilizations around the planet that is unknown to us? It's off the historical record. So it's a fascinating journey once you get into it, because when you get into the whole stars and planets and astrological side to things, you realize that there are cycles of time. There's precessions, and that what they did was they honored these times with festivals, with changing of things. And even the gods themselves were honored by these different cycles or different stars or different constellations. And it created the mythology and motifs that we know today. But we lost the star knowledge, but we kept the mythologies of them.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
But
Wow.
I like to get into the weeds a little bit. Could it be that maybe we had some help? Someone already came here from the stars and were able to, in a more accurate way, over a much shorter time, find this knowledge and give it to us, i.e. possibly Anunnaki or someone else.
Well, that's what they tell us.
Yes.
A lot of the ancient myths talk about teachers that came and taught this knowledge of astronomy, architecture, farming, to the people, to the nomadic tribes. So they basically created their civilizations with that knowledge, with the help of these teachers. And the teachers are the mysteries. Who are these teachers? There's some suggestion that they're not even physically human. They're non-human intelligence that at a certain time in Earth's history, we were more open to an intelligence on the planet that spoke to them, just like the seers of the old, where they told them all the secrets of the universe, and that's how they established their mystery schools, their teachings, and then civilization came from that. When I was in Peru, we were talking to the local people, the local shamans, medicine men, and they said, from their ancestries, when the Spanish came over, they thought they were the gods because they had contact with people that had long white beards that were not like them, and that they would come and teach these tribes and then leave. So when the Spanish came, they thought it was just the return of the teachers. So we have this kind of oral history or tradition that there was this type of teacher going around to different places around the planet to give them this information. But then there's this whole other philosophy that, maybe given a long enough time, humans will just come to these conclusions. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. If you just observe nature, we will all come to that same understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. If we just observe nature. Yes. Yes. We don't have that much time left, and I would just love to go back for one more minute. What was the first healing modality that you began with? Was it the healing aspect of Qigong or Reiki, or?
It was, the first thing I got into was traditional Chinese Qigong.
Uh-huh.
And from there, I got into, believe it or not, essential oils.
Okay.
So I was very fascinated about plant medicines.
Yes.
And the most potent form of plant medicine is the essence, the essential oil of them.
Yes.
So I really got into essential oils. And then from there, I got into energy modalities, like the energy field. I even bought a Carillion camera to capture the aura field.
Wow.
And then from there, I got into shamanism. And I went back to the, going on journeys, using the plant helpers, the crystal helpers, learning about the different totems and what to do with sorcery and all this other fun stuff.
Yes. Yes. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So in your early explorations, let's call it, what was the most potent message or experience or aha you got from one of your journeys? Do you have one that really stands out?
Yes. I've had the transcendental, or how do I say it, a transcendent experience where I just, maybe some people will call it a Kundalini experience, but this was beyond that for me. It was, I just exploded.
Wow.
I turned into fire, and this fire it was like this fire went through all time and space. And it was like this fire touched all of creation all at once. And I was that fire.
Wow.
So it was this transcendent experience where it was like I was this fire connected to everything all at once. And it was like the only thought that I can comprehend in my mind was, oh, so this is what God feels like.
Yes.
And then the fire came back within my heart. And I know that every single person has the fire of God within their heart. I know this because I've experienced it. So we're all part of that fire.
Yes.
And it's the most extreme, no experience compared to that. That's hands down the greatest experience I've ever had in this life.
Thank you for sharing that. That is so powerful, and it speaks volumes on so many layers, so many levels. It's beautiful, Jason. And we've got about 4 minutes left, and if you would please tell people how they can find you and how they can find your books. And Augie usually has a final question to ask. So Augie, you want to take it away, please?
First tell us where you get. Do you sell your books off of your website also, or Amazon entirely? Whichever way is easiest for you. Let people know where they can get them.
Sure. The easiest way to get them is through Amazon right now. So you can get the Egyptian Postures of Power, the blue cover like this on Amazon. And my newest book, Astral Genesis, Astrological Keys to the Gods, that's also on Amazon. You can, and just by typing my name, Jason Quitt. The other books were taken offline. So even if you can still see them on Amazon, it's very difficult to order them. But you could also get them from my website, thecrystalsun.com. And I'm very quiet on social media these days. I was banned on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm slowly coming back. And so right now, all I got is my Twitter, which is Jason_Quitt. And I just started a new Facebook page a couple months back, Jason Quitt. So you could find me on Facebook now too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I noticed something that you said earlier into the show here, and that was that those postures had phenomenal effect. So guess what I'm going to do later tonight? I'm going to get on Amazon and get... Did you see... I see 2 of the books about the postures on there. Are there 2... which one do you think the beginner should start with?
There's only one right now, and it's this one. I know there's a couple on Amazon, but this is the only real copy that's out there.
Yeah. That's the one I'm going to get, because I want to know about these postures.
Great. The book is it's packed. I tried to fit everything I could in that one.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And then my favorite question. If you could talk to the whole world and the world was listening, what would you tell them?
Love yourself. Because that's the only way we could heal the world. So we have to collectively heal our wounds or traumas, which we all have. And only then can we dream a world together.
Heal ourselves. You're right.
Yeah. No one's going to do it but us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. Amazing. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely our pleasure.
Thank you so much. And we got a conference coming up where we're both going to speak here in about a month or so, I think.
Yeah, aren't we doing the astral travel conference with the Portal to Ascension, and that's going to be an online course. I believe it's October 21st, and we'll be talking about journeys out of body, the astral world, and my good friend Neil is putting it on. He's a great guy. And that's online. So anybody in the world can come and listen to us. We're both going to be speaking. Yeah.
That will be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being with us. And then maybe we can get you to come back.
For sure.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks.